we're good. We're on YouTube. Facebook's still down.
Okay, and we did notify folks that we're using our alternative stream. Okay. All right. Welcome to our Monday, October 4th caucus prior to our regular meeting. Just get right into the agenda. Like in caucus, approval of minutes from the previous meeting, September 20th, 2021. I'll be offering those. Then we'll get into our public hearings. There are 3. And as we discussed in our caucus, the ordinance 53221, that was the ordinance that handled the USDO amendments. So it's kind of confusing. So the idea is to have a general conversation on the USDO amendments, even though it's indicating ordinance 53221, which actually represents the amendment. So that the confusion with that at the caucus was that. Then next on the public hearing, ordinance 116120. That's mine. It's for the parking lot zoning changes. We'll be voting on that pending the outcome of the public hearing. And also on the public hearing, we have ordinance 259121. That's going to change the zoning map up on Sherman Street.
Yep. Real quick, Kelly, just want to go through them because of secret purposes. So, so I sent everybody the draft secret determination.
There's some.
Oh, okay. So on the zoning text amendment, it is a type 1 action for purposes of SECRA. And going through the analysis, there was no impacts that I determined going through the EAF part. The only one that was sort of a determination was an impact was the archaeological and historical portion. But upon further review, I determined there was no impact, or if any, little impact. So based on just the zoning text for ordinance 116120, for secret purposes, I'm recommending that it be issued a negative declaration for purposes of SECRA. And then for the zoning map amendment, very similar in terms of their EAF. It was the only impact that I determined through going through the file was the historical and archaeological portion. Again, upon further investigation, but let me rewind this back. It was an unlisted action, so this is a little more detailed look in it. So I went further into it, and again, based on the file and what the Department of Planning had in the Planning Board, it was I'm recommending a negative declaration as well for purposes of SECRA under Ordinance 25.
Do we need to adopt a resolution in either case with our findings?
No, it could just be easily just a motion, just accepting the recommendation at this point, because they're both, one's a type 1 action, it's smaller, and the other one's an unlisted action, so it's gonna be just a simple motion to adopt it and accept it.
Then who's making that motion?
So it would be the sponsors for. I would recommend sponsors.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the minutes would reflect that finding.
Yes. And as in my email I sent out earlier, I did produce a draft decision in it, which goes through the analysis of the what our USDO requires, and also it also puts the secret determination in there as well.
Okay. I think in the past sometimes we've incorporated that finding into the ordinance depending on what the type was.
Yeah, we've been working on perfecting that. It's some with type 2 actions. It's type 1, type 2, and unlisted actions. They're all over.
Right. I mean,
So,
in some cases we've adopted rather extensive resolutions,
Yeah, for
before.
example, like with the 76 project, we adopted a very intensive resolution. We were still working on it.
Yep.
Type 2 actions, from what the NICOM and what my other colleagues have said, is type 2 actions. It literally just has to be said on the record, and that's what I've done. If you read any of the past minutes, that's usually what I do and declare that.
Yeah.
With my recommendation when it's type 2, type 1s, it's just it's just a deeper, fuller analysis with going through the actual paperwork and the file, and that's what it's close, because in the end, all that paperwork gets. What I do with the legislation itself is I incorporate it all in the final form, so the hard copy ends up being like this thick, because it has all the part 1, part 2. Corey signs off on all of them once if there's an approval on it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, JR. Okay, on to local laws. We have local law Q by Mr. Igo, local law Q of 2021. That's number 6 on the agenda. We'll be voting on that. And that went through the law committee on September 23rd. Came out with a positive. Yeah, positive.
Out of committee with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Igo. Okay, next on to ordinances held. Item number 6 by me. Ordinance 116120, pending the outcome of public hearing. We'll be moving forward with that and voting on that. Okay, then next on the ordinances held, number 19 by Ms. Love. Ordinance 248221. Relating to the habitat in 188 Orange Street. We'll be moving forward with voting on that. And next, item number 20 by Ms. Love, also ordinance 259121. Okay, and that's the subject of the hearing, and pending the outcome, we'll be moving that. On to resolutions introduced by myself and Mr. Nani. Resolution 76-101-21R, declaring October 18 through the 24th Free Speech Week. We do that. This is what we've done the last couple of years. So we'll be moving that. Next, resolutions introduced again, Mr. Nani and myself, 77-101-21R. It's declaring October 4 through 8 Digital Inclusion Week in the city of Albany. Again, another. We usually all are co-sponsors on these. Next, resolution 78-101-21R, resolution declaring October 20th Community Media Day in the city of Albany. Again, Mr. Nani and myself. Again, looking for co-sponsors. We generally all jump in on it. So we'll be moving forward with that. And next, resolution 79-101-21R. It's a resolution establishing the reapportionment commission in accordance with the charter. We'll be moving forward with that. Any questions so far? Mr. O'Shea?
Yeah, so we're supposed to be we're establishing the reapportionment commission. Do we have any criteria for individuals for that? Are we going to be doing a call for applications?
Yes, Mr. Conti actually forwarded us the previous one from a couple of years back, and Mr. Pichardo is working off of that to put it together. The CFA.
I'd say more than 10 years back.
Right, yeah.
Do we do council members serve on that? I don't. You want it to be independent.
You know what? I will tell you, there was the first time we established one, there were council members who were placed on there, which was probably a mistake because you should not have council members. The intent is it's an independent citizen commission. And when you put council members on there, they they're looking at it for their own interest in a sense. The commission that we appointed the last time, which was in 20, I think it was in 2011, 2012, for the 2013 lines and elections, there were no council members on there. And the council adopted the report and recommendations of the commission, even though there were some members and there were some votes on amendments. But I think the majority felt that it was important to, in the spirit of an independent commission, to adopt the commission report as adopted. But the charter doesn't preclude council members. You shouldn't do that though.
Right. I agree with that. That's,
I mean, in the end, we're establishing the reapportionment, and then we're going to appoint them, and then they're going to come up with the draft that the council then has to either accept or reject.
So my recollection is that there was a little confusion in what was adopted 8-9 years ago, in that then there needed to be some reconfiguring of the underlying committee districts because some of them overlapped a ward, which was no longer kosher. Do you
When you
remember
say
that?
committee district, what do you mean, Judy? Do you mean like county?
An election district.
Election district?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that always has to happen, even when the county legislature redraws their line, because the county legislative lines and the city ward lines are not aligned. And so there's a lot of confusion or whatever, but ultimately it's the Board of Elections. And we used to have that authority, but it's the Board of Elections that then has to draw the election lines, election district lines in accordance with the election law. But that's something that will probably happen depending on what the lines look like. I think it's important that we get census data that gives us by ward, so we know what the census says by ward, so we know to what extent you need to change ward lines or how drastically or not drastically. But that's important to get that information also before the process starts.
That happened a lot, Richard, I think. Well, I'm not sure how much, but it was the census, the way they drew the census maps, okay, districts, they overlapped wards quite a bit in some places.
One of the recommendations that came out of the last census when we were redoing it, I think I've read it somewhere, was that we get the apportionment committee get a cartographer, which is something that we're looking into right now, at least for budgeting purposes.
Right. It was Denise Kelly, who was our director of vital statistics at the time, was basically the person who handled all the census data, worked on reconfiguring maps and pursuant to what the commission was looking at. So we had Denise at that point, who was really the point person as far as manipulating the data based on various ward map proposals, et cetera.
One of the problems, which I remember from the last time, was the Census Bureau put, particularly SUNY and maybe even the other colleges too, but they put SUNY into an enormous census block, and there's no, I guess you can split a census block when you're considering election lines, but the board never did, and Tom, the 15th ward, wound up with one census block with about 8,000 people in it, and it's the bulk of the SUNY campus.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of was unfair to the 15th ward because it, tipped it into, really they should have taken that census block and split it up more, but they wouldn't.
15th.
Well, my understanding is that they could have.
The 15th actually got a lot of the 13th and the 14th. And everybody just shifted down.
Mm.
We've lost the Pine Bush. At one time, the 15th had the Pine Bush, and is that yours now, Mike? It is.
Yeah, that became in mind because you got so many people, because somebody had to take this huge 8,000 block census block. And it got assigned to the 15th ward, which meant keeping the Pine Bush would have had you over your numbers. So they gave the Pine Bush to the 12th ward, and a big chunk of the 12th ward went to the 4th. Everything on the other side, north of Interstate 90 that we used to have. But I don't know. I mean, I would say to avoid that problem, they should consider taking those enormous census blocks of students and splitting them between more wards.
There only one.
Well,
how
let's
many-
get the commission.
Let's get the
appointed
commission
first.
appointed.
Right, and they
The
can
commission
work through
appointed,
that.
yeah.
Right, and they
Right.
can
I
work through
can't
that.
argue it.
So,
Yeah.
Mr. Williams, you
Can
look
I
like
ask, what committee appoints? Is that going to be operations, council ops?
That's the way it
makes
happened
sense.
last
It
time.
makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah. So, Mr. Williams, you look like you're ready to
Oh,
ask a question.
yeah, I was just gonna read the charter language about who has to serve or who can serve on the commission. It just says that the reapportionment commission shall include city residents in such proportion as to reasonably reflect the demographic composition of the city, together with such other expert and official representatives as shall be deemed necessary and appropriate. So it's, as I think somebody, possibly JR, said, it doesn't preclude council members, but it really leaves it pretty broad as to who may serve on the commission, particularly as regards the such other expert and official representatives as shall be deemed necessary and appropriate. But, you know, what does that mean? Deemed necessary and appropriate by whom? Doesn't answer any of those questions.
Well, the council appoints the commission, so the council makes all those determinations.
And most of the people didn't have any special expertise in demographics. As I remember, it was pretty representative of normal
It was a
people.
good commission, and we did have someone who had some experience, but I thought it was a good commission.
Mike, did they have any students on there? Because you said about.
No, not that I remember, no.
Maybe this time we need to have some students involved, you know, if we're dealing with 8,000, make sure they're represented.
Right, so,
They
so
apply.
we're through the agenda, so we're just kind of talking here. We have an issue again this time around with the mandatory training. The deadline is the 9th. Ms. Gillespie, you want to just speak to that for real quick?
The deadline is fast approaching and we have a very low response rate. I know that there were some inconsistencies, as Councilman O'Brien pointed out, where he completed the training maybe yesterday and it didn't accurately reflect or provide a certificate of completion. I think that's an anomaly. Usually it turns around a little quicker than that. And if we trend like we've trended in previous years, then around this time, we typically have a low response rate. So my plug is, if you haven't done so already, please try and log into the LinkedIn and complete the mandatory compliance training. If you're having any difficulties, if you reach out to me or Angelica, we'll do everything that we can to make sure people are able to successfully log in. And then that's all I got.
Right. Okay. And I'd like to say that we did get a late notification on this. So I mean, but we still got to get the training done. Also, if you've done trainings through other employment, like the sexual harassment, that you just need to send a certificate of completion to Danielle. But also, there's some trainings that are unique to the city, so you need to get into the portal and actually look at them.
I would just
Go ahead,
follow
Jen.
that up with, if you're doing a training through something else, you're not going to get the completion certificate through the LinkedIn Learning, but Angelica will know that you have it. So just to be aware of that, if you do that training somewhere else and you send her the certificate and then just do the Albany ones, you're still going to get the emails that you haven't completed it and everything like that, because there's no way to change that in the LinkedIn Learning.
So thank you, Ms. Fahey.
Thank you. I just, well, a question about the about the sexual harassment training. When does it go into effect? Because there are quite a few of us who won't be here come January.
You have to do it now for this year in order
Oh,
to
okay.
satisfy the state requirements.
Okay, thanks. And the other thing I wanted to mention is as far as the USDO amendments, the plan is that plan is to have another draft by the end of the week. And they've been working on a lot of different changes concerning non-conforming uses, interpretation, step down proposals, the policy on fences. So they're trying to get that out at the end of this week. And just for everyone to keep in mind that planning is very busy right now with between the budget, they've got some staffing issues and some other internal issues. But that's the plan. And we're looking at adding one more committee meeting, and we're looking at Tuesday, the 19th. So I know Ethan's going to be reaching out to committee members. So I'm hoping we can get a quorum for that night. So we'll review these most recent changes to the USDO. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Pichardo and then Ms. Frederick.
I'll let Ms. Frederick go because mine's
Okay.
a little bit longer.
Okay. Ms. Frederick?
We can't
We
hear
can't
you.
hear you.
You're muted.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Pichardo.
So as everybody recalls, earlier this year we had a lawsuit against the city for the blood plasma lawsuit. I'm happy to report right now they never perfected their appeal. So we're just waiting for the appellate division to dismiss the case, and so the law that we have passed that overrode the veto stands on the books at this time.
So does that end it? No possibility of coming, they don't come back or anything, or?
Nope. They once you that was one thing we were checking. I was waiting a little bit because the response date was September 20th, but with delays and everything, I don't know if the appellate division was going to be like, hey, we'll send it out again, but they never responded. I've been checking myself. They never uploaded anything to perfect it, and so what that means under our rules on the appellate level is that once you don't meet that cutoff date, either with a request for an extension or anything, the case is done.
Okay, good.
And JR makes it to the best lawyers. But here's another reason.
Okay, we still got a couple minutes, Ms. Frederick. Can't hear you.
How about now?
Yes, yes.
Sorry, I got a new webcam. Just in regards to the trainings, do you happen to know if it's only state-specific trainings that would qualify to meet the requirement? Or, for example, I take sexual harassment trainings that are geared towards state regulation, but it's from like my company in particular. Would those qualify?
Got your certificate of completion, because most companies' programs follow the state guidelines. So whatever you have from your employer, I'll definitely forward it.
Okay, thank you.
Kelly, Jack Flynn's been trying to sign on for a while. I can't get on, so I'll let you know.
I'm working with him right now.
So I have a question for Danielle. Danielle, I believe I used the training from the school district last year.
That is correct. I think you may have had to do one of them though, like the violence prevention one. There's one of them that's city specific that you had to do, but your sexual harassment training, they accepted your certificate of completion from the school district.
Okay. So does that, so do I have to do it again, or when I do it again for the school district, just give it to y'all?
It's an annual training. The deadline is the 9th. If you've already completed the school district's training or anticipate completing it before the city's deadline, provide the certificate of completion. And then All set.
Copy. Thank you.
I have a quick question for Danielle J.R. Is this meeting streaming on Facebook or
It's streaming on YouTube.
on
YouTube.
YouTube? For some reason, I'm trying to find the council's Facebook page and I'm not finding it. It comes up with no results.
Yeah, that's why we're streaming it on YouTube, because the Facebook is not working right now. Some
Well,
people
no.
are getting access and all.
Yeah, I'm getting access, but I'm not getting the council's page won't
I
come up.
wasn't getting access all day, and they said nationally there's a problem with Facebook and some other social media sites.
Yeah, they just had to reset their servers out in California, so they're slowly
You
and
know
surely
what?
getting back up.
Our page just came up on Facebook saying that it's streaming
It's on YouTube.
Yep.
Yeah, but I wasn't able to even get a search for Albany County Council, and nothing was coming up.
Yeah, that was a Facebook thing, but we sent out an email earlier letting everybody know that it was
Yeah, no, I
was
got it.
down.
Link to YouTube. I'm gonna send you the link to YouTube right now. Put it in the email.
Hold on a
It's
sec.
working. It should work. If you click the YouTube in the Facebook, it should take you right to YouTube. Which is kind of odd. Begs the question, why doesn't it work on Facebook? So.
Kelly, can I just,
Yes.
I sent a note out, but at the beginning of the excitement of the budget and the finance committee meetings begins on Wednesday. I mean, it already has begun. It really began on Friday. And if you got your budget book and have been going through that, but our first meeting is on Wednesday. And the mayor will be coming in to answer some questions instead of as we once did after the mayor's budget presentation. She's going to come in and answer some questions at the beginning of that meeting. Ideally, those would be, her request is that it would be more of a high level policy questions, because any sort of like in the weeds, nitty gritty questions, she's going to just turn over to Nick, who will be there for the rest of the meeting. So to give everyone a heads up on that, to kind of think about what questions they'd like to ask the mayor.
A quick question, because I thought you added some other items, ordinances, I think, onto the agenda. Will you be doing budget first and then doing those on the end?
So I think since the mayor can only be there for a specific time period, we'll probably do the mayor first. I do prefer to do any sort of business, or we have to vote on it towards the beginning, because sometimes we do lose members. So if it doesn't disrupt the flow, we will be going into those right away. If the mayor's going to be coming on later, then I would be doing those first. But I can let everyone know the order. Ideally, just to let everyone know, we will be doing any sort of business in the beginning and then get into budget pieces, just to make sure that we're able to pass those through the committee, because of course business has to go on. So, but I'll confirm exactly what will be happening with the mayor, and if she's coming on a little bit later, then we'll definitely do those first and then get into the budget.
Is this the way it's gonna be from now on, that we're not gonna get, after COVID's over, are we still gonna meet down at City Hall, be able to question her on the budget proposal?
I don't know what their plan is for it moving forward. I talked about the importance of the precedence of the council being able to directly ask the mayor questions about the budget, and she agreed that that's not a precedent that we want to lose, which is why we're doing this here. I personally, I prefer to look through the budget a bit more and ask questions. There's not a wealth of time right after that. And then it's the same time reporters are asking questions. So I don't mind a shift to something different. But my big push with the mayor was making sure that we didn't lose this precedence, because it is an important piece. It's an important transparency piece, and it's an important piece for the council to be able to directly talk to the mayor about policy issues in the budget. I fully understand that perhaps the mayor should not get into like the nitty-gritty pieces. I think that's totally fair. But the mayor should be able to have a dialogue with the council about the broader policy pieces. The budget is as much a policy document as it is a financial document. So, so they agreed to kind of hold on to that. But I think depending on what happens in the future, we can if it's something that it's important to council members to have at that time, then I think we can certainly bring that up. But right now, we're able to kind of continue that process on Wednesday.
And just I want to let everybody know we're gonna do what we did last year with the OneDrive. So I sent out an email with the OneDrive link. Make sure you're checking that. It's already getting it's getting some stuff in there. If you want access to last year's budget or any years prior, I'll send them out too. OneDrive has, compared to last year, I think it really was helpful and reduced a lot of resending a lot of emails. Everything was just in that link. So if you have any issues accessing it, please let me know.
And that's only accessible internally to the council, not to the public.
That's only internally to the council, exactly.
And I was just wondering if there was a possibility for, and I hate to ask JR, Danielle, creating a budget page on our page where we could put budget information and maybe departmental presentations as we receive them.
Danielle, you
or
I don't have access to the website, so.
or our interns or whatever. I'm not, I mean, if it's possible,
I'm sorry. I was trying to respond. I'm on mute. My computer is insane today.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We'll do a link to the various department presentation and then also the city's website. We'll do, the city's portion of the webpage where the budget documents are contained. So absolutely, we'll take care of that.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yeah, and we're pressing them to get the budget presentations for each department earlier than later, sooner than later. So I put out a request that they get it to us by this Friday, with the exception of Department of Admin Services, who will get it to us on the day before their meeting.
Yeah, getting that stuff in advance of the meeting is really helpful to be able to review and then be able to ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I've reiterated that, as have JR. I sent an email. JR sent a really lovely email too, encouraging that, because to me, it's a waste of time in a meeting if you're not able to actually read the information ahead of time and prepare questions. So,
yes. And if they're not going to send us anything more,
people do, but we have been really pushing for it because I completely agreed. It's an important thing for us to be able to function properly.
Right. So, and if they're not going to present more than what's already in the budget, that they have to affirmatively say that in a statement to us, so that way we don't go chasing after them.
And there are some that are not doing anything additional. And I've said that if what is in the budget book is what they're giving us, then we can read that. That's great.
Thank you all. All right, Mr. President.
Thank you, sir. Now we are here on our regular scheduled Albany Common Council meeting, Monday, October 4th, 2021. Can the clerk please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. President, if all members can unmute themselves so that they're able to respond to their name. Anani.
Present.
Halloran.
Yeah.
Conti.
Here.
Dochette.
Here.
Fahey.
Here.
Farrell.
Here.
Flynn.
Here.
Frederick.
Here.
Hoey.
Here.
Igo.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Kimbrough.
Here.
Love.
Here.
O'Brien.
Here.
Robinson.
Here.
15 members present, no one is absent.
Thank you. And now we go to, we're going to go to our Pledge of Allegiance. We'll have the clerk put up the flag and we'll do a Pledge of Allegiance. And right after Pledge of Allegiance, we'll have our moment of silence. Thank you, Danielle. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Thank you. And for all those listening to us tonight, there's a step. We normally have public comment period at this time, but in front of us, a part of our agenda, we have 3 notice of a public hearing tonight. And so we will do those public hearings notices right now. If anyone wishes to speak on each of these public hearing, you can do so, but you have to speak upon the ordinances that are in front of you. Unlike public comment during public hearing period, council members can ask questions of anyone who speaks about any of the ordinances that are on a public hearing. Once again, I'll say that again, unlike public comment period, this is the time where a public hearing where council members can ask speakers questions about their statements. So with that being said, can the clerk please read the ordinance of the first public hearing?
Would you like me to just read all 3? And then they can comment regarding
Well,
either.
I think we should do it separately because once each one closes out, that ends that public comment. I don't want people to think they can get on and comment on. I want, make sure that people comment on 532.1 at the appropriate time, and then 903 and then 2591.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the first one is 1160. Let's see.
1161.
I think the first one is 532.21, which is an ordinance amending Article 1, General Provisions of Chapter 375, USDO of Part 2 of the Code of the City of Albany in relation to the necessary amendments.
Yep. And do we have anyone signed up to speak upon that ordinance on this public hearing?
No, no one has expressly indicated that they wanted to speak to that ordinance.
Okay, so I'll give it 45 seconds just in case someone's listening and he might want to comment. We want to give people, I don't know how they would access, but we'll wait 45 seconds. Okay. There's no comment on ordinance 532.21 in the public hearing. This time, this public hearing is closed. Can we go on to the second, Madam Clerk?
The second is ordinance 1161.20, which is an ordinance amending Chapter 375, City of Albany Unified Sustainable Development Ordinance of the Code of the City of Albany in relation to parking lots in MUCU zone districts.
Have we have anyone signed up for this public hearing?
No one. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Sorry, Ms. Gillespie. This is Lillian Moy I'm the director of the Legal Aid Society of Northeastern New York at 95 Central Avenue, and 1161.20 and the next ordinance are both relevant to my comments. So however you would like me to proceed.
I'd like to proceed on ordinance 1161.20 first, just so for common council members might have questions. So I don't want to, get it mixed up. I want them specifically, if they have questions, to be questioned on each independent ordinance.
I think everyone on the council knows what we do at the Legal Aid Society of Northeastern New York. We do provide free civil legal services to low-income individuals, and we are located at the Center for Civil Legal Services on 95 Central Avenue. 1161.20 could have a favorable impact on our request to build, our hope and need to build a parking lot on Sherman Street. And so I'm just speaking in favor of this ordinance and will on the next one as well.
Thank you. Is there any questions by any common council members for the speaker? I see none. Okay. Is there any other speakers for this ordinance? Have anyone signed up, Ms. Gillespie?
No, the other speakers are just looking to make comment during our regular public comment period.
Okay. Well, this public hearing on this ordinance is closed at this time since there is no other speakers for this. And moving on to the final public hearing, Ms. Gillespie.
It's for ordinance 259121, which is an ordinance amending chapter 375 of the Code of the City of Albany Unified Sustainable Development Ordinance, changing the zoning classifications of 77, 79, 81, 83, 83 and a half, and 85 Sherman Street from two-family R2 to mixed-use community urban MUCU, and amending the zoning map accordingly.
Any public comment on this?
Ms. Moy, Lillian Moy.
Thank you. Again, as you know, I'm Lillian Moy. I'm the director of the Legal Aid Society, and this ordinance will really allow us to construct a parking lot that's urgently needed to accommodate our staff and our clients at the Legal Aid Society. As you are well familiar with the need for parking to conduct any kind of nonprofit or commercial business, and it's urgently needed in this case. As it stands now, we scrabble around, we have a remote working schedule. We're not able to bring all of the staff of the Albany office of the Center for Civil Legal Services into the building and to be part of the community every day. When we are back in without a parking lot, our staff and our clients will compete with our neighbors' customers for the limited parking on Central Avenue. It's really essential to our daily operations. And in particular, I think for you to see our clients need to have parking that's close by to the building. When we first bought 95 Central, we were encouraged by Chris Spencer to look at Sherman Street for additional parking. That is, of course, where the prior owner parked, Equinox. But at any rate, we've done what we thought we needed to do in terms of acquiring the lots on Sherman Street. And we stand ready to move forward if we can resolve the zoning issues, which is why earlier I spoke in favor of both I speak in favor of 116120 and 259121, both of which are needed to allow us to move forward to construct the really urgently needed parking. I wanted to thank all of you for your service, and especially Council Member Love, Dochette, and Kimbrough for their actions in moving these particular ordinances forward now so that we can begin to take action to create the parking as that's needed. And at the same time, you can maintain the integrity of the USDO as a whole. So we know this is really difficult work. We appreciate your detailed attention to what needs to be done and your support in all of our endeavors. And as well, we support the work of the staff of the Planning and Development Department because we know how challenging it is. And of course, we appreciate your counsel, J.R. Pichardo, who moved forward on the items that were necessary for you to consider this request tonight. So I'm here, although you can't see me, but I am here and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Moy. Mr. O'Brien has a question. Mr. O'Brien?
Yeah, it isn't really a question. It's just I had spent some time volunteering with Legal Aid, and I remember talking with Lillian when they were buying the building, and she gave me a tour, and I became aware of the problem. Sherman Street is literally directly behind their Central Avenue building. And I appreciate all the great work that Lillian has done with Legal Aid and in establishing this center right where it should be, right? Accessible to all of the clientele that are going to need it. So not real question, just a message of support, I guess.
Thank you, Mike. And I want you all to know that Mike is a great example of a pro bono volunteer. And they would have parking too. So that when everyone reopens, we had always hoped that we would be able to provide office space and office equipment for some of our pro bono volunteers and in a freely open way. We're not quite there yet, but we still hope for that in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any further people registered to speak, Madam Clerk?
No, not specific to the public hearing.
Okay. Any more questions? Seeing none, I will deem this public hearing closed at this time. And that will end our 3 public hearings for October 4th, 2021. And now we'll move on to our next item on our agenda, which is our public comment period. During the public comment period, all those who sign up, could you please state your name and address for the record? You have 5 minutes to speak upon any subject you wish to speak upon. At your 4-minute mark, I will let you know you have 1 minute remaining. And please finish up your comments by then. But also at this time, unlike a public hearing, common council members cannot ask you questions. If common council members choose to do so, they will do so, react to your remarks at a later portion in the agenda or during the process of some of these things that we will be voting on. So with that being said, can the clerk please call the first speaker?
Yes, Mr. President. Anita Thayer.
Good evening. My name is Anita Thayer. I live at 196 Mount Hope Drive in the city of Albany. I'm speaking tonight in opposition to local law M. First of all, I'm completely unclear as to the language and status of local law M. Are there amendments that were made at Thursday's Public Safety Committee? And if so, what are these amendments? The amendments, if any, need to be spelled out, written up clearly, and made available to the community at large, as the issue of the usage of tear gas and rubber bullets is a matter of great concern to the public. It appears that local law M is simply trying to give a veneer of respectability to the current failed tear gas policy of the city of Albany. The various amendments that were discussed on Thursday simply add sugarcoating to the APD practices many of us witnessed during the summer of 2020. What we need is for our police department to investigate non-militaristic tools available for controlling crowds in a manner mutually respectful of all participants. In conclusion, I ask that the Common Council continue to engage our community in this issue and not rush to support a local law that fails to address the many concerns folks previously brought to the attention of this body. Finally, I ask that the council consider not enacting any business tonight, as it appears that the proceedings are not available via Facebook as required by your current COVID written protocol. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thayer. Can the clerk please call the next speaker?
Mr. President, the next speaker that I have is Julian Mastachetti.
Okay.
Hello, that's me.
Go ahead.
Thank you. All good. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I am speaking on behalf of myself and also the Capital District Democratic Socialists of America. In similar to.
Can you please state your address for the record, sir?
Oh, pardon. Yes. My address is 41 Morris Street of Albany, New York, zip code 12208.
Thank you, sir.
Certainly. Yeah, similar to Anita Thayer, I am here to voice my opposition to local law M. I was not even aware until today that it was actually on the agenda. My understanding was that there were several amendments that were considered along with it. And it was also my understanding that if there are any amendments to the law, they need to be adopted. And if they're adopted, it cannot be voted on during this meeting. But in any case, my opposition to and our opposition to local law M is not based in process, but in the substance of it, which is to say that there's not actually much substance to this bill at all. It does not address the public concerns that have been raised over these past several months, as many people have been giving public comments and testimony as to the dangers of tear gas and the reasons why it needs to be fully banned for use by the APD. Given that local law M does not come with any actual consequences if its rules are violated, then I regard it, and many others do, as a list of suggestions and not rules. APD has demonstrated on both times they deployed tear gas over the summer of 2020 and on various other occasions that they can flagrantly violate their own rules and regulations and get away with it with no consequence because the governing bodies that are supposed to be overseeing that authority do not do so. So I regard local law M as sort of, an abdication of the authority of this democratic body to essentially giving the police the discretion to declare when a riot takes place, which is something they always do in retrospect when they find the need to use these weapons. So yeah, I am entirely against local law M. I do not believe it should go through, certainly not in its current form or the way it is done so, or the way it is proceeded thus far, given the fact that we needed several months of delays before the council actually came to a vote on local law C. I think it would be very disturbing if the council rushed this through without any kind of chance for public oversight. So thank you. That's my comment. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Can the clerk please call the next speaker?
The next speaker I have is Jean Ann Gregory.
They're unmuted, so Jean Ann Gregory?
Is that, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Go right ahead.
Okay, perfect. Okay, my name is Jen Ann Gregory. I live at 1 Sandalwood Court in the cluster subdivision of New Scotland Woods. We did have the opportunity to address the Common Council last year in regards to proposals of changes in the USDO. We've been working with some of the council people, most notably Councilperson Jack Flynn, Mr. JR have been down to our subdivision as well. Director Glass, Director LaJoy, the buildings. We had an issue where our subdivision is 124 homes, townhomes, with planned green spaces for the last 30 years. Suddenly in 2019, the current owner, the previous owner of the green space announced to the neighbors that he had sold the property and they were going to build apartment buildings. This green space happened to be kind of in the middle of our subdivision, very similar looking townhomes and a group home. But oddly enough, the group home's been here for a very long time, in perfect harmony with our neighborhood. And the group home is consisted of about 4 of the townhomes together so that it blends into the general look of the neighborhood. Anyway, fast forward into the pandemic, things were a little bit on hold after groundbreaking. The problem with the procedures for the whole thing is that for subdivisions less than 4 units, it was a minor subdivision. Minor subdivision applications were handled mostly internally by the planning board at the time. So the neighbors were not notified that things were approved. We weren't afforded the opportunity of comment or even to appeal any decisions because we didn't know any of the decisions had been made. Fast forward into the pandemic, when things started clearing and things started moving, construction started to happen and happened then very quickly. The buildings constructed were of nothing similar to the townhouses on either side of it. Were very plain and it looked like apartment buildings. The real estate developer advertised, hey, these 2 units are for sale and 2 or 3 more are coming. So basically the developer decided to circumvent some process to break up the building into smaller subunits. So reaching out through Councilperson Jack Flynn and reaching out then to Brad Glass, he did include us in some of the revisions and some of the new proposals in the USDO. So I'm here basically tonight to wholeheartedly support that, and we hope to also address public comment at the future meetings in regards to this. Our most favorite change is in Article 5, 375-505, under specific procedures under the developmental plan review. Director Glass had made a change, and we are now letter I, that says the construction of a new principal structure on lands previously plotted as part of a cluster subdivision, or the re-subdivision of lands plotted as part of a cluster subdivision in order to facilitate construction of a new principal structure, now falls under major subdivision changes. So that it then triggers public notice to neighbors, and then review by the full planning committee. So that should there be an inappropriate structure or something that abuts another town or requires removal of a 119-foot slope, that there's chance to comment on it before it kind of goes through via signature. So we're here to support. Thanks. We're here to support these changes and hope to continue working in the future with the entire council and the planning committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Can the clerk please call the next speaker?
The next speaker that I have is Miriam Galarza, but she is not in the queue, but she writes to say that Albany needs to build more skate parks in the Capital District.
Do we have any more public comments written?
Yes, the next one is from Nesta Littlejohn. Good evening, members of this committee. That one is good. Ava DeSantis writes, I am a resident of Albany who advocated for local law C, the full ban on tear gas. I am against local law M. Local law M is less than a meaningless reform. It is a clear attempt to dismiss the tear gas issue and confuse the public by presenting itself as a solution. Local law M will not stop police use and abuse of tear gas. Further, it will allow both to go unpunished. The public wants a full ban. Support for anything less is a betrayal. This attempt to confuse and deflate us is an even greater betrayal. Vote no on local law M. Ziana Azrael writes, I am against local law M. We need a full ban. Teresa Mannon writes, regarding pickleball, the fastest growing sport you may never have heard of. The single tennis court at Capitol Hills has fallen into unplayable disrepair and would be an ideal location for dedicated public pickleball courts. Currently, there are no dedicated pickleball courts in the city and too few tennis courts lined for pickleball. Bethlehem's Elm Avenue tennis courts and Voorheesville Park Lane tennis courts are overflowing with pickleball players from all over Albany County. The Team Reach app notes that more than 75 players at each location. Pickleball would be a great addition to Capitol Hills, bringing community together for sport, healthy exercise, and fun. Respectfully, Teresa Mannon. Sam DeFaz, I'm against local law M. We need a full ban now. What's outlined currently does nothing to ensure any concrete changes in future tear gas use, while also allowing for the uneven enforcement of said law against BLM activists and similar activists primarily. The threat of tear gas use is still very much present, not just against activists, but to the entire Albany community with the current iteration of this law. Thank you for your time. From Sam DeFaz. Catherine Mules. Local law M is grossly inadequate at addressing the issue of tear gas and kinetic weaponry on Albany streets and in our homes. Any deployment of tear gas will inevitably result in disproportionate harm to anyone and everyone beyond its immediate vicinity, and this cannot be controlled for. This is due to the fundamental properties of CS gas, the type of tear gas Albany Police Department stockpiles. CS is released as an aerosol powder, and particles of CS can be carried over a quarter of a mile through the air and still remain potent enough to injure people. Good luck controlling that in a city that's only just over 4.5 miles wide. The requirement for a new policy on tear gas deployment, as local law M stipulates, ignores the fact that Albany Police Department already has a policy on the correct deployment of tear gas. This policy was violated with no indication as to how the officers responsible were disciplined for their misconduct. Anyone who wants to pretend otherwise need only read what Mayor Sheehan and Police Chief Hawkins themselves acknowledged in the aftermath. The research is clear. CS gas has demonstrable long-term debilitating effects on the health of anyone who comes into contact with it. It has triggered miscarriages. It causes hormonal imbalance. It inflicts chemical burns to the eyes, skin, and lungs. It damages the liver and kidneys. And it does this to everyone, to intended targets and to innocent bystanders alike. It is toxic and does not belong on our streets or in our air. The only safe solution is banning tear gas from APD's arsenal entirely. Do not pretend that local law M will make Albany residents' lives safer. Jordan Ferrero, the replacement of local law C by local law M is insufficient. There should be no half measures or gaps. Tear gas needs a complete and full ban. Lucy Skidmore. We need a full ban of tear gas. Throwing tear gas at protesters is not how we should handle freedom of speech in the United States. Local law M does not fully ban tear gas. We have seen what tear gas does to people, and we need a full ban. I am against local law M. Do better. That concludes the written comments that I have.
Okay. There's no one in the queue.
Nope, all the folks in the queue have provided their comments.
Okay. Well, that being said, tonight's public comment period is closed, and we thank you for your comments. Continuing on with our agenda, moving to approval of minutes, Mr. Kimbrough.
Thank you, Mr. President. I offer the September 20th of 2021 meeting minutes for approval.
Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Hoey. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Minutes approval passes. Moving on to consideration of local laws, Mr. Igo. Oh, can't hear him. No problem, Joe. Go ahead. Nope.
There you go.
There you go. Yep,
Law
go ahead.
committee, law committee passed out of committee proposed local law Q on September 23rd with a unanimous recommendation. At this time, I'd like to make the motion that the vote is in order and call for a roll call vote thereon.
Thank you, Mr. Igo. Can the clerk please read the local law?
A local law amending Chapter 255, Peace and Good Order of the Code of the City of Albany in relation to unnecessary and unusual noises and the treatment of such noises as nuisances.
Is there any discussion on this local law?
Mr. President?
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Mr. Igo.
This law basically changes the methods of fines for noise complaints. It used to be a fine of $250 for the first one. And they're changing it now to a fine up to $250 for the first one. And for each conviction after that, it will be going up $250. So we'll go $250, $500, and then up to $1,000 per conviction. That's up to it. It's not necessarily. It could be whoever, if it's in front of a judge or whatever. And they're also appointing points to offenses of this, which will go forward into the abatement process of what we have for different properties right now. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Igo. Any further discussion on this local law? Seeing none, can the clerk please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. President, if all members can unmute themselves so they can respond to their names. Anani.
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Valorant,
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Conti,
Yes.
Dochette,
Yes.
Fahey,
Yes.
Farrell,
Yes.
Flynn,
Yes, co-sponsor.
Frederick,
Yes.
Hoey,
Yes.
Igo,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Kimbrough,
Yes. Co-sponsor, please.
Love,
Yes.
O'Brien,
Yes, co-sponsor.
Robinson,
Yes.
15 in the affirmative. Local law passes. Thank you. Moving on in the agenda, consideration, reports of standing committees. I believe Ms. Fahey would like to go first. Go ahead, Ms. Fahey.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Planning Committee met on September 20th. And there were some additional changes made to the schedule for reviewing the USDO amendment proposals. And I wanted to make sure to mention that, well, tonight was the first public hearing. We do have 2 additional public hearings scheduled. The second one is scheduled for October 18th, and the third public hearing is scheduled for November 1st. And we hope that the amendments will be going to a vote in the first council meeting in December on the 6th. That's an updated schedule. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fahey. Ms. Farrell?
Thank you, Mr. President. The Finance Committee will be meeting this Wednesday. And on Wednesday, the Budget Office will be doing a presentation on the budget. The mayor will be answering a few questions in the beginning. We'll also be dealing with Ordinance 269121, an ordinance authorizing the sale of to Rockio Villa of the city-owned property at 142 Livingston, and Ordinance 279121, an ordinance authorizing the sale to Kim Champion of the city-owned property at 59 First Street. We will also be meeting on Thursday, the 7th, and we'll get a debt report presentation by our treasurer, and we'll also have a presentation by the Department of Administrative Services. And then just to put a pin on next week, Wednesday, directly after caucus, we'll be having presentations by APD and the fire department. And that's all for now.
Thank you, Ms. Farrell. Mr. Kimbrough?
Yes, Public Safety Committee met on the 30th, Thursday, the 30th of September, to discuss local laws L and M. Local law L didn't get moved out of committee. M did without a recommendation, pending some amendments. I'm working with Mr. Pichardo right now to work on those. So best case, it gets amended on the 18th at our next meeting and then gets voted on in December. So just for folks watching, it's going to be a while before it comes up for vote. That's it.
Thank you. Any more standing committee reports? Mr. Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to note that the call for applicants for the Commission on Human Rights, the deadline has been extended to November 1st. And these members will be seeking for 2 terms. It'll be a term for ending in 8/21/24, and then another term ending in 8/21/22. So we encourage all those who are listening, also council members, to get the word out about these positions open on the Human Rights Commission.
Thank you. See no other hands for reports of standing committees. We'll move on to ordinances, section number ordinances, and we'll start with Ms. Love. Mr. Kimbrough.
Thank you, Mr. President. I notice ordinance 116120 as amended and ask for its passage.
Can the clerk please read the ordinance?
An ordinance amending Chapter 375, City of Albany Unified Sustainable Development Ordinance of the Code of the City of Albany in relation to parking lots in MUCU zone districts.
Is there any discussions on this ordinance? Seeing none, can the clerk please call the roll?
We had to do this secret declaration.
Oh,
Mr. Kimber, would you move to accept my recommendation of a negative declaration pursuant to secret?
I think he needs to withdraw the motion on the
motion.
ordinance.
Yep.
Motion withdrawn. I'd like to withdraw the motion on ordinance 116120 as amended.
Is there a second on that?
Second.
All those in favor? Motion passes. Mr. Kimbrough.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. President. I make the motion to accept Mr. Pichardo's recommendation, or excuse me, negative declaration on the ordinance 116120.
Is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Continue on, Mr. Kimbrough.
Thank you, Mr. President. I notice ordinance 116120 and ask for its passage.
Madam Clerk, can you please read the ordinance again? Thank you.
Yes, Mr. President, an ordinance amending Chapter 375, City of Albany Unified Sustainable Development Ordinance of the Code of the City of Albany in relation to parking lots in MUCU zone districts.
Discussion on the ordinance? Seeing none, can the clerk? Am I missing a hand? Okay.
Yeah,
Mr.
you
Hodey,
missed
no
me.
problem. No problem.
I'm sorry, I'm just reading it again. And I don't know if he said it or not. Did he say as amended?
Good point.
Okay, as
amended, I think he did say.
I thought I did.
Yes. But go ahead. Any further discussion? Seeing none, can the clerk please call the roll?
If all members can unmute themselves, Mr. Anani.
Yes.
Ballard.
Yes.
Conti. Conti. Doshette.
Yes, co-sponsor.
Fahey.
Yes, co-sponsor.
Farrell.
Yes.
Flynn.
Yes.
Frederick.
Yes.
Hoey.
Yes.
Igo.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Kimbrough.
Yes.
Love.
Yes.
O'Brien.
Yes.
Robinson.
Yes.
Mr. Conti.
Yes.
15 in the affirmative.
And it passes. Continuing on with ordinances held, Ms. Love.
Thank you, Mr. President. I notice ordinance 248221 and ask for its passage.
Thank you. Can the clerk please read the ordinance?
An ordinance of the Common Council authorizing the sale to Habitat for Humanity Capital District of 188 Orange Street, tax map parcel number 65.81-6-41.
Is there any discussion on this ordinance? Seeing none, can the clerk please call the roll?
Anani.
Present.
Valorem,
Yes.
Conti,
Yes.
Dochette,
Yes.
Fahey,
Co-sponsor,
Yes.
Farrell,
Yes.
Flynn,
Yes.
Frederick,
Yes.
Hoey,
Yes.
Igo,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Kimbrough,
Yes.
Love,
Yes.
O'Brien,
Yes.
Robinson.
Yes.
14 in the affirmative and 1 present vote.
Ordinance passes. Continuing on with ordinances held, Ms. Love.
Thank you, Mr. President. I noticed ordinance 25.19.21 and move to accept our research council's recommendation of an unlisted action and issuing a negative declaration.
Can the clerk please read the ordinance?
Was there a second on Love's? I'm sorry, I missed
That's
it.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Just a point of clarification, Mr. President. The last legislation, I said yes. Mistakenly said present. Sorry about that.
Oh. Gotcha. So that was 15. Did you get that, Madam Clerk?
Yes, Mr. President.
Please read the ordinance.
Mr. President,
Yes.
when Councilwoman Love made the ordinance, she said 19 instead of 91. I don't know if that makes a difference, if we have to correct that or not.
Your ears are better than mine.
Then for the record, we'll just state that that motion was in reference to 25.91.21.
25.91.21, yes.
Okay. And then I think the request was for me to read the title. Is that correct?
Yes.
An ordinance amending Chapter 375 of the Code of the City of Albany, Unified Sustainable Development Ordinance, changing the zoning classifications of 77, 79, 81, 83, 83 and a half, and 85 Sherman Street from two-family R2 to mixed-use community urban MUCU and amending the zoning map accordingly.
Is there any discussion on this ordinance? Seeing none, can the clerk please call the roll?
Anani,
Yes. Co-sponsor, please.
Valorem,
Yes.
Conti,
Yes.
Dochette,
yes, co-sponsor, please.
Fahey,
Yes.
Farrell,
Yes.
Flynn,
Yes.
Frederick,
Yes.
Hoey,
Yes.
Igo,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Kimbrough,
Yes.
Love,
Yes.
O'Brien,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes.
15 in the affirmative.
Ordinance passes. Mr. Kimbrough?
Thank you, Mr. President. Rest of the ordinances on the agenda are held.
Thank you, Mr. Kimbrough. Moving on to resolutions introduced, Mr. Nani?
Thank you, Mr. President. I noticed resolution 76-101.21R and ask for its passage on a roll call vote.
Thank you. Can the clerk please read the resolution?
Resolution of the Common Council declaring October 18th, 2021 through October 24th, 2021 as Free Speech Week in the City of Albany.
Any discussion on this resolution? I saw somebody saying, Mr. O'Brien.
Are we all sponsors on this, or should we
I
recite it?
didn't hear that in caucus. Are we all co-sponsors? Okay, thank you. Mr. Nani, I did see your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. This is a resolution that we have passed over the past couple of years to reaffirm our commitment and dedication to making sure that individuals in our city and all across the country have free speech. Very too often we have elected officials that support similar resolutions, but is this something that we really firmly believe? Do we affirm that human rights of the backbone of our democracy, which is free speech? Freedom of speech is, quite frankly, one of the most fundamental rights guaranteed in the United States Constitution. It allows each of us to express our ideas, to disagree without fear of retribution or retaliation, and quite frankly, which is crucial to a free democratic society. This resolution, as written, states that Albany Common Council, as representative of the people of the city of Albany, recognize and appreciate and support the fundamental freedom that we want to reinstate and remind our city of the importance of freedom of speech all throughout our city. I'm proud to support this with my colleague, Kelly Kimbrough, because freedom of speech is one of the most important foundations of our democracy. And as elected for the city of Albany, I pledge to defend and support the right, no matter how inconvenient it may be. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anani. Any further discussion? Seeing none, since you're all co-sponsored, we'll just do a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 None opposed. Resolution passes. Mr. Anani.
Thank you, Mr. President. I know this resolution 77.101.21R and ask for its passage on a roll call vote.
Thank you, sir. Can the clerk please read the resolution?
A resolution declaring October 4th through the 8th, 2021 Digital Inclusion Week in the city of Albany.
Discussion on this resolution. Are we all co-sponsors on this one? Did I miss this one? We are, Mr. Chair? Okay. Any discussion on this resolution? Seeing none, by voice vote, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Resolution passes. Continuing on, Mr. Anani.
Thank you, Mr. President. I know this resolution 78.101.21R and ask for its passage on a roll call vote, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. Can the clerk please read the resolution?
A resolution declaring October 20th, 2021 Community Media Day in the city of Albany.
Discussion on this resolution. Are we all co-sponsors?
Yes.
Here by voice vote, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? None opposed, of course. Resolution passes. Continuing on with resolutions, Mr. Kimbrough.
Thank you, Mr. President. I noticed resolution 79-101-21R and ask for its passage. I believe we're all co-sponsors. It would be our reapportionment commission.
Yep. Can clerk please read the resolution?
Resolution of the Common Council of the City of Albany establishing the City of Albany Reapportionment Commission in accordance with Section 406 of the Charter of the City of Albany.
Any discussions on this resolution? Seeing none, we'll do a voice vote on this as well. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unopposed, resolution passes. Mr. Kimbrough.
Okay, if there's nothing else, motion to adjourn. Well, actually, I did want to end miscellaneous, or do you want me to close out the resolutions? Is that what you want? Okay, thank you, Mr. President. The rest of the resolutions, well, that was the last one held on the agenda are held.
Thank you, sir. And any miscellaneous?
Mr. O'Brien.
Yeah, just quickly, there was a public comment about pickleball on the tennis courts at the golf course, which that person had sent to me directly also. So I forwarded it to Sergio and to Jonathan Jones and to all the members, or I asked it to be forwarded to all the members of the golf course committee, which is basically rec and general services. It sounds like a good idea to me, and I think it should be considered. And I also, at the same time, asked to maybe pick a date sometime in late October, or the latter part of October, for the joint committee on the future of the golf course to meet. We usually meet quarterly, and it's due for a meeting in October. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. O'Brien. Mr. Conti.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to respond to a comment made by Anita Thayer during public comment. A great deal of respect for Anita, but she did make a suggestion that we should suspend our meeting because it was not being streamed on Facebook in accordance with our rules. And I just want to note, just to clarify for members and for the public also, that both on our agenda, which people can see, it says there, when there are technical difficulties with Facebook, it is on YouTube. That same information is on our webpage as well. And I know that it was also published on the Facebook page tonight that, we were streaming live on YouTube, and there was a link to the YouTube, council's YouTube page. So I just wanted to clarify that, it was being done, the meeting was being streamed in accordance with our rules or our standing procedure, even if it was not on Facebook. And I just wanted to clarify that, otherwise, no, and that was basically it. Thank you.
Conti. Mr. Igo?
Yes, I don't know if anybody read in the newspaper, but 2 more Albany police officers have transferred
Waterville.
to Waterville. And they've only been on the department since 2021 or 2020. And it's just disheartening, especially when the chief was, great talk we had the other night. And he wants to get 100 and all these people in these classes. Well, seems like we get some in the classes and a lot just drop out, and then some come in and transfer. I don't know how we're ever going to make that up. Maybe when we get negotiating, we get enough money to want to stay. But I wish we could do something about keeping them. Either we could say something like they had to be on for a certain amount of time, or it's just disheartening. And I'm sure it's disheartening to their former members of the department when I'm training guys and they bail out, so that's it. Just want to make sure everybody knew about it and we'll give it some thought.
Mr. Hoey?
It would have to be negotiated, which I think
Sorry.
they're trying to start up as fast as they can. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Igo. Mr. Hoey?
Yeah, and I just I had heard from Bob, I don't know his last name, but he's the county legislator from Waterville. And he told me that on Saturday that 2 officers had transferred. And I brought up, there's nothing we can do to, make them stay in Albany, even though we put, 50 or 100, whatever the amount of money is in training. He said in Waterville that they have a 5-year, that if you sign up, that you've got to commit to 5 years. So, and I know we've talked about this before, but could JR come up with the actual legal language that prevents us from putting something out there that, if you commit to be an Albany policeman, we do the training that to get out, you'd have to pay for the training or you have to put your 5 years in. I'd like to see something like in writing, what can we do about that?
Mr. Hoey, I suggest you work with our counsel on that, and pretty sure he'll help you along with that. Ms. Love?
Thank you, Mr. President. Could somebody tell me what pickleball is? Please.
Ms. Love, I love that. That is so great to end the meeting on. I don't know what it is either. Jack, Mike?
It's like ping pong. It's like a small version of a tennis court with a paddle, like a ping pong paddle, with like, you can play between each other. It's a smaller version of a tennis with like a wiffle ball and a paddle. That's what it is. And just to follow up on what Michael Bryan said, I have been talking to Justin Atlas. They do have 4 parks that they are going to put pickleball in next year, that they are planning on doing that right now.
It has its own Wikipedia page.
If I
Go ahead, Miss.
if I can
I'm
just
sure Judy's great at it.
Miss Doche.
No,
Go ahead, Miss Doche.
I've had a number of constituents suggest that for our little park in Woodlawn Park. So I did look it up, and they told me that it's great fun for adults and children to play alike. It is less frustrating than chasing a tennis ball around a big court, I think is a big part of it. So I mean, people say basically it's a lot of fun and it's gotten to be very popular.
Mr. Kimbrough.
But Judy, let me know when you go play so I can watch you.
Kelly?
Mr. Kimbrough.
Kelly?
Yeah, no. Go ahead.
I'd just like to ask JR, when I brought up about the officers leaving, look and see if we can, I don't believe we could do it by ordinance. I think it would have to be negotiated, and I don't know how it would go. You might know better, Kelly.
Our research, JR will research that, and he'll be in touch with you and Mr. Hoey on that matter.
Yeah, my comments in the same vein. It would probably have to be like some kind of MOU or contract with the officer. I did bring this up with the chief, but understanding that we're trying to put a lot of people on in a short amount of time, I didn't really feel necessary to press right now because we're behind. Right, but at this point, when we have folks leaving, it really is. I mean, I care. I don't. Not that I don't care about Watervliet. I care about the city of Albany and our employees and the safety of our citizens. So whatever we have to do to make folks stay, whether it's 3 or 5 years, I think we should do whatever we can legally do.
Especially they're coming through our academy too. So it's not like they're getting trained someplace else. It's on our dime and they leave. We train them to leave to go someplace else. I don't think,
And they don't have a contract right now. So this is the perfect opportunity. If we need to put something in a contract, that's why I'm bringing it up, because let's get it.
Mr. Hoey, JR could work with you guys on that and letting your sentiments or the council sentiments be heard through that process. And then they'll have something, the chief and our city negotiators will have something in writing that how the council feels with the council sentiments.
If you can look at.
It's called a non-compete clause. Real simple.
That's true.
Motion adjourned.
No, JR, just one thing. I'll talk to JR.
Thank you. Thank you. That's what he's there for. He's our research counsel. Thank you. We don't have to discuss it.
Keep police officers in the city. And I have a suggestion.
That's exactly right.
Get through civil service, be able to give them 5 points on promotional exams, okay? And that's one incentive we might be able to do by law to keep them in the city. Thank you.
That's right, Mr. Igo. Thank you so much. Mr. Kimbrough.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
Second.
There's a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.